What we want to surface are little baby insights, like little insights that might be dawning and you're not sure yet.
The ahas.
Anything like that happening? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm taking from what you presented is that each area is independent of the others, whereas I actually think whilst I can sign up to Adaptive Agile, I actually don't believe that that's to the exclusion of the others, because you still need to be results driven as an organisation, etc., which is from a different area of that diagram.
Yeah.
I might not fully agree with that, but let me just lay in a piece
There's
that we did talk about.
a transcend and include piece.
Yeah. These are sort of in backwards order to how they were before, so sorry for that confusing part. But these are a development sequence, so you don't go from here to here. You have to go through each one, and you don't necessarily go up, and you don't tend to mix and match so much. Maybe at teal you can, but certainly at green you don't tend to.
Yeah.
You technically have developed through that level, and so you could have access to it, but in fact, most people don't.
Yeah.
They tend to marginalize those aspects of themselves.
And Adaptive Agile does get results, like maybe even better results. Actually, studies show better results than the other levels. It's just totally different. It's done in a way we haven't seen very much yet, so we're not as familiar with it. Yeah. So a dawning insight over here.
Fascinating for me is that I saw. I saw some clear examples from the company I'm currently working with of tradition-driven agile and people-driven agile. Some actual examples of that working. What is really fascinating for me is I've seen that those two different stages in different parts of the same organization.
Absolutely.
So
good.
the problems that this company are facing is due to the clash of those two.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Any
Good noticing.
Any
Good
given
noticing.
organization. So person is about 60% of people are centered in one of these stages, and 40% are in between two stages. They're transitioning from one to the other. So if you add that complexity into a whole organization, you're certainly going to have people at all different stages of development within any given organization, and there's going to be a center of gravity of the organization that's typically going to be in one. When push comes to shove, what do you do? Maybe between two. No, even that, there's probably a predominance, just like you take a Myers-Briggs and you're extrovert, introvert. I mean, many people are right on the border, but they're a little more one or the other.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of a thing.
Good. So thanks for those beginning insights. Yeah.
All
Good.
right, we're gonna
So
keep
let us
going.
give you another piece.
So back to the idea of business and human systems agility, you'll see now these are these levels of complexity. Imagine them coming up like this, dimensionally, so that a higher level of development has a bigger perspective, because it's an aerial view, like going up in a plane, you have a bigger perspective on what's going on. It's not the perspective, but it's a more inclusive perspective. It sees more, includes more.
Yeah.
Sorry, so you have a vertical axis there without any labels on it. Could you give us some labels?
We're about to.
Okay.
But
Great.
we're layering it, we're creating that dramatic tension.
It's working.
Okay, so these are now 4 different perspectives that you can take on any given situation. And to label explicitly those dimensions, this side is the intangible side, and this side is the tangible side. And this half is the singular or individual, and this is the
Collective.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So you'll see the names of these windows, and we'll talk about, there are, we call this the I perspective, and there are certain kinds of methods, methodologies, technologies, techniques that are appropriate or that are rooted in that perspective. So for instance, we teach a lot of professional coaching skills in our classes. And professional coaching is helping somebody explore their own I experience, their own internal world of what they value, what they believe in, what they want, what they aspire to, their vision. It's technology, if you will, for how to get into that space with someone and be useful to them.
So that's one window you could look through if you're looking at a team or a whole organization, right?
Over here in the id perspective, it's more like the scientific method. So we do experiments and we measure things.
And the id perspective can only measure things on the surface, right? Things that are easily observable.
Another way of saying it is that this side is about surfaces and this side is about depth.
Yeah, great.
So, and as Einstein said, everything that counts cannot be counted. And everything that is counted does not count.
That's a little black and white for me, but you know, it's what he's talking about is the kind of the scientific materialism that we have inherited from this wonderful thing called the scientific method, which we've gone really, really, really far with. And we tend to marginalize the other side as being somehow not real.
The integral view is that none of them is right. They're all true, but partial. And so to take a complete perspective, you have to investigate all of them. But we as, sort of limited creatures, we tend to have a favorite. We have maybe two favorites. And so we go there most of the time.
And the reason why we're so hot on this model, why we like it, is that we find that the Agile coaches we coach don't know that they're looking through a window. They think they're seeing the whole thing, and they're only looking through one of 4 windows. Well, no wonder their interventions aren't necessarily working, because if they had a bigger view, they'd be able to say, okay, cool, I see this going on in the window that was familiar to me, but these other things are going on through these other windows, and actually our biggest intervention is over here, working on something that this window allowed us to see. All right, great. So let's talk about the ITS perspective down here, ITS, ITS.
In the systems thinking perspective, or the systems window, we do systems thinking. So we think systematically about emergent properties of collectives. So what happens when, a good example that people would know, I can't. But it's things that happen, well, actually, culture arises in an organization out of the different beliefs of people. And it creates structures that have, like an organizational structure, for instance, that has a certain characteristic or creates certain properties or certain behaviors, drives certain behaviors that are not necessarily planned by anybody. They just happen.
And somehow we all know they're there and we all act accordingly. It's really fascinating.
So from this perspective, more sophisticated Kanban comes out of this perspective to see the emergent properties that inhibit flow. And we're looking for what inhibits flow that we might not expect sometimes.
Yeah.
That we might not see immediately.
And over here in the cultural window, this is what we believe together. It's our shared mental models, our shared vision. Some technologies here are relationship systems intelligence, which is a way of doing systems professional coaching. That's what Michael and I are both certified in. So it's a way of helping human systems be healthy.
Okay, so if we take this to Agile approaches, the I side is more like being Agile. You've heard about the difference between being Agile and doing Agile?
You've probably had people give you a sermon about being Agile versus, maybe you've been sermonizing about being Agile versus doing Agile, right?
And professional coaching that we've talked about, software craftsmanship on values.
And you might not know all these things, that's okay. We're just giving you a flavor of where some of them fit. Yeah.
Scientific method.
Software craftsmanship. So over here in the IT quadrant, on the software craftsmanship piece, we wouldn't take people's word for it that they are a software craftsperson. We'd say, did you check in your code? Where's the timestamp? Right? Things that we could actually measure.
So there's just different ways of seeing the same phenomenon. Over here, SAFE is a pretty ITS-oriented thing. This thing called, you know about beyond budgeting?
Yeah, so many of you are nodding your head, yeah.
Agile way of
Doing
budgeting.
finance.
That's sort of an ITS perspective, systems thinking. theory of constraints, holacracy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the control, competence, collaboration, cultivation, cultures, if you've heard of that, Phil Schneider's culture model, that's a more we thing.
Yeah. Mental models in total.
So you might think about which one of these sets of things, you may or may not know them really well, but you might look for which one do I like pay most attention to, or that's, oh yeah, that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the one that you have a preference for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is also your bias. Not necessarily a bad thing,
Well,
but not the whole picture.
it's probably, like for me, my preference is here in we space because I'm the best at that. I'm by far better at reading a room or reading a system on an emotional, social level than I am in these other perspectives. So I have competence there, and I can, make progress there. So I naturally am drawn there, and I need to also remember the other perspectives because they're also part of the equation.
You're reminding me of how my husband John describes me and him. Yeah, I'm just realizing actually how in so many of these models, my husband and I are diametrically opposed. This is something I'll have to talk with him about when I get home. So he says that when we walk into a party, he immediately notices that the walls are not exactly 90 degrees, and some of the pictures are crooked, stuff like that. And he says, what I immediately notice is how people's relationships are going. That I can look over there and say, oh, that's a happily married couple. Oh, they're having trouble. What's going on with that family over there? I immediately, he says, she sees this as if it's something physical. I could see like the net, the web of relationships, right?
So her husband's seeing through an it perspective, and she's seeing through a we perspective.
Yeah.
Same room, same deal going on, two different ways of talking about it.
Yeah.
Or
Or two totally different things to see.
to say pay attention to.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Fun.
So when we take this back into the overall framework, with we have the altitudes back in, the I space is for us is about leadership and engagement. So how engaged are people? That's one of the biggest HR challenges of the last couple of decades is having people engaged at work. Right? They're checked out.
Yeah. And what's the stage development of the leaders of the organization? How able are they to actually be agile leaders?
Right. Are they stuck in command and control? Is that's the only thing that they know how to do, as opposed to maybe it's a style that they exercise in certain kind of situations where it's appropriate, but not in others.
So these labels are for agile transformation. Right. This is now applied directly to the agile world.
So over here, it's about products and technologies and how we develop products, what technical practices we engage in, that sort of thing.
And how we develop customers is also in that quadrant.
Yep. Here is about like the structure of the organization, the architecture, the policies,
The procedures, processes.
how you do performance management. And over here is about organizational culture.
Yeah. Now, see, that what we have in the agile world a lot is these different quadrants arguing with each other, when actually we need all of those perspectives, right? Because if you have a real it's perspective, you might say something like, agile would be fine if we could just get the system right. When we get the system right, the people will act right. Okay, that's a nice idea, but that's not necessarily going to happen that way. Right? So we have to pay attention to both of these quadrants at the bottom, and in fact, all four of them, if we're going to have the kind of impact we want to have in organizations.
Okay, so just to put a little more flesh on the bone, we're going to really quickly go through what's the development like from, so the other thing about these quadrants is that evolution happens within each quadrant.
And not necessarily the same amount in each quadrant in a given organization. Right?
From less complex to more complex and not necessarily the same. Okay, now that makes it really complicated, right? Are you seeing how this is a meta framework? Is that making sense at this point?
Yeah. Okay.
Sure, really.
Yeah.
So this is a measure of mental complexity. So here, my I space is things are black and white, and there's only one right answer.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about too much stuff. I do what I'm told. I conform to the rules of society, and I'm successful that way. right?
through what we call self-authoring mind, which is like I'm my own person and I make my own value judgments about things apart from how other people feel about me. I don't let that limit. Through what we call self-transforming mind, where I don't even believe myself.
That I'm a work in progress, and my bumper sticker would be, don't believe everything you think.
In the competencies in the products space, it's things like how do we do product development from a very push-oriented method where you can have any color car you want as long as it's black.
Yeah.
That Henry Ford.
Right.
That's a very more amberish kind of a way up through.
Right.
You can design your product yourself. We'll help you. Much more complex way of thinking about it. Technical practices from, well, that's not my job to do those kind of things, to, we're going to pair on everything. We're going to write tests. More complex kind of way of thinking about technology development.
Yep.
Here, structural adaptability is about how our structure develops. So on the amber end of it, our structure is going to be very fixed. There's not any real chance of it changing. Through orange, we're going to change it around a lot. We love to reorient orange to optimize different vice presidents' portfolios.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you notice we reorg, but it basically looks the same? It's just different people, but it's the same structure, right? Up through teal is that the structures would change according to what's going on, what the current strategy is.
Changes with market conditions because the people are flexible enough to actually move into different relationships with each other. They don't have a hierarchy anymore. They don't need one.
And so also flowability. In amber, there's not a whole lot of flow. Think about it. It's a bunch of queues. It's a bunch of functional stovepipes, right?
To the most complex level where there's really good flow, where it moves quickly, easily.
Yeah.
In the culture sphere, basically we have cultural complexity is about this orange or amber to orange to green to teal, and congruent. I'm not going to explain that as a different thing. The scope of this talk.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let's catch our breath. Actually, that's the whole framework. We want to now apply it, but let's pause for a second. What questions do you have?
Maybe you might be covering this later on, but I'm kind of obsessed about motivation at the moment and theory around motivation. And what, to me, as you come out, the motivation changes from more extrinsic. It seems like mostly like command and control, the middle kind of grey or amber, what was it? No, it was amber colour. It's more kind of command and control, kind of extrinsic. You can get a bonus, kind of, or you must do it, or you can get fired.
That's pretty orange.
Or bonus, bonus is orange. You're going to get fired. Is amber.
Yeah.
But if you get the motivation right, and that's really more of a cultural thing, would the others just kind of organically happen?
No, not necessarily. No? Now, so, what's your name?
Magic.
Maju?
Yes.
So, my guess would be that you are an I kind of a perspective person. Does that make any sense to you? Because you're talking the language of if only we would get this right, the others would come along.
In theory.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a developer as well, so I'm very much about the developing system.
Yeah,
Sure.
To me, it's all about groups and human systems, about what motivates
Yeah.
to achieve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
certainly me developing my own self-motivation and how that works will tend to manifest in other places,
Absolutely.
but it won't guarantee it. And the reverse is true too, though. If I put you in a structure where you're in a strict hierarchy, you are not going to develop your self-motivation very far, because that structure is going to tend to box you in.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas if I put you in a very adaptive structure, it's going to tap into new kinds of motivations and bring out new kinds of behaviors or self-complexity, and so it's going to tend to push the evolution that way.
Think about someone who you might know that a lot of what they say and do sounds like it comes from an amber altitude. I mean, really, they believe that their role is something really important. They need to stay in their role. They don't need to go out of their role, and we throw them into an Agile team. That's pretty tough for them. I mean, when I saw this framework, I started to realize, oh, boy, I've been kicking those people over the edge so long, and they continue to resist, and I keep trying to convince them how great Agile is, and it hasn't been working because I wasn't actually honoring their level of stage development.
Anything else at this point?
I wonder, the person at the very top of an organization, do you think the preference, the quadrant preference of this person, do you think that could drive the direction in
Yes,
which the organization
well,
goes?
it sets a glass ceiling or a constraint on how far the organization can develop.
Now, it's not necessarily which quadrant is their primary quadrant, it's what altitude they're coming from, right? So in the Frederick Laloux book, Reinventing Organizations, he has a theory that, that the altitude of the whole organization is capped by the altitude of the sea level and the board, both, right? So in order to get a teal organization, then theoretically you would need people operating at the level of teal in both the highest levels of the leadership of the organization and the board of directors.
It doesn't guarantee it, though,
Yeah,
but it does limit it.
does enable it though.
It's a, yes,
Right,
it's
it makes it at least
necessary,
possible,
but
right.
not a sufficient condition.
Right,
Thank you.
yeah, great. Great, yeah. We got one over here.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks.
Hello.
As we work up towards teal, that's great. But boards of directors have responsibility to shareholders.
That's right, because the entire structure they're in is a very orange structure.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
So how would boards deal with their shareholders?
So,
They
a
might
public
not.
company will probably never develop to teal.
Yeah. In our current structures.
At least what I see is the most progressive companies are private, they're privately held, or there's a new kind of form, at least in the U.S., called a B Corp. Do you have something like that here, a benefit corp?
It's where a for-profit corp is joined with a not-for-profit corp, and the profits go into the not-for-profit.
We don't have a particular structure, but that does happen.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
In a traditional corporation in the U.S. by law, the board of directors have to act in the financial interest of the shareholders.
Right.
That is not true of a benefit corporation.
Right.
They are able to state a societal benefit that they're working towards, and they can spend whatever they want to for that
Toward that
societal
benefit. Which is why they're joined with one or two nonprofits.
So you're right that
Right.
a stock market driven company under that condition is an orange structure
Yep.
that's bounded by orange
And
thinking. It is
quite
not
unlikely to move to teal. Quite unlikely.
All right, let's
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah, good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take these quadrants and show you what's possible at the different altitudes, right? And so this one happens to be amber orange, like amber moving to orange.
Let's do a little quick poll. How many people feel like you work in a pretty amber organization?
Like the center of gravity is amber. Not that the whole thing is,
Okay.
but the center of gravity. Now, by the way, when you're answering this question for yourself, do not think about what they say. Think about what they do. Yeah? Because those are two different things. We often say, look which way their shoes are pointed.
So
Okay.
how many people feel like you work in a primarily orange organization?
Okay, good number in the
Okay.
room.
How about a green one?
About 7 people, 8 people.
How about a teal one? Anybody?
1. You are everyone's favorite guy in the
Are you
room right
hiring?
now. Right? Yeah. Great.
Inquiring minds want to know. Okay, so if you happen to be in an amber-orange organization, somewhere between those, I'm not going to even put up amber because I don't think you should do it there. You're not necessarily working in one. Very few people probably are fully amber, but So this is what I think is possible. So you can actually do iterative development in an amber orange organization. Agile, not necessarily, but and you could start to value customer feedback. So that could start to be a conversation that you would start to have in an amber orange organization. They're not going to become customer partners or anything, but they're going to start to care about. It's realistic for them to care about.
So your teams can get a little bit closer to the customer, but probably not right with them. Right. So think about the fact that in a lot of amber organizations, one of the struggles is the divide between IT and business. And it's so hard to get the business people on the bus with Agile, right? Okay.
So this next place, the organizational architecture structure place. So an amber, a strictly amber organization is going to be a strict functional bureaucracy. And an orange organization is going to be a matrix organization because orange adapts the amber structure, but then they shoot holes in it with projects, because projects are what customers pay for, so you've got to have some way to organize around that, so they create matrix organization. You have that concept here, right?
Yeah.
Where people sort of report to project managers, sort of report to, functional managers.
So you've got the idea of projects, right? Not necessarily going to get to the idea of products over projects in amber moving to orange. Okay, so if that's your aspiration, just notice that your aspiration doesn't necessarily match what's most likely to happen.
So here I'm going to start to be able to create
The difference with those?
Could you repeat that again?
Yeah. So in an amber moving to orange organization, the idea of projects makes sense. But the idea of products over projects doesn't make that much sense to them.
For instance, SAFE is going to want to align you around value streams. Actually, pretty much any scaling framework is going to want to organize you around value streams, which equal products, essentially, or a series
Or a group of products.
Not the organizational structure, or not projects. So, but you're not going to get that in an amber-orange organization. You're going to get projects or functions. That's the battle you need to have, is let's pay more attention to the project, not to your testing function or your business analysis function. Does that make sense? That's where you stretch, not to, some kind of flow. Don't even think about it. Here, power from job title matures into an outcomes orientation. That's a good thing.
And that's a big stretch for people who are working in this altitude.
So that's what you could expect realistically to have happen. And the culture might begin to value results. And, in an amber organization, you're going to have an allegiance to your function. You don't care about your team. You care about whether the testing function is right, or whether your boss is happy.
And this is why Amber Orange freaks out with where are the project managers and the BSAs going to go? Well, you notice they're not anywhere in Agile? That's kind of a misalignment, isn't there? Isn't that? Right? But this structure is not going to immediately move toward getting rid of the project management or the business analysis function. There's a lot of allegiance to those functions.
Okay, so that's amber-orange by quadrant. What's realistic? This is the battles you should be having, is to try to attain this, not to implement holacracy.
And not to try to get them to teal.
Just shoot me, please. Don't try to implement holacracy, for God's sakes. Jeez. All right. So in an orange enterprise, what could you do? Well, you could limit WIP, especially in the name of driving efficiency.
Yeah, baby. If they get the fact that focus gives them more, all over that.
Now, the thing that's going to counter that in an orange organization is that orange organizations are organized around politics and around power of the vice presidents or senior vice presidents or whatever driving their portfolio, who are going to want to start projects so that their customers are happy, blah, blah, blah. They're going to want a bigger portfolio so that they have more power, blah, blah, blah. So that's difficult, but at least it's possible. And collaboration in the name of efficiency, not in the name of relationship. Okay?
Right.
Make sense? Here, you can start to get a crude value stream. You can start to go beyond projects to, hey, customers buy products,
Yeah.
Let's see if we can't that's going to be countered by this politics I was just talking about, because
Yep.
that's going to disrupt
Right.
the power relationships between all this turf
Yep.
of the relative, senior leaders.
This is where
We're
the
driven to do that.
Yeah, and this is where the implementation of SAFE is kind of brilliant, because when SAFE practitioners are taught, because Michael and I have taken this 4-day SAFE class, so in that class we're taught, don't worry about trying to figure out the real value stream at first. Just draw a kidney, something that looks like a kidney around the organization chart, and group the people together who are working kind of in the same area and call them an Agile release train. Right? And what happens very naturally to that organization is as that release train starts working together, it starts making this move from the matrix structure to a value stream orientation. And we've seen, at least in one case, a very big financial institution in the US, a credit card company and a bank, where they did that for a while using SAFE, and then they went, gosh, it's kind of stupid that we're organized the way we are. Why don't we just reorganize around the value streams? That's pretty smart, like slipping that one in under the door,
Process. So here, people are drawn to new ideas and to success.
Yes.
And you want to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And people identify with their profession, and they want the latest training, they want certifications.
Mm-hmm.
That's their motivation.
Yeah, and they want mastery. People want mastery in their craft. So speak that language to people all day long. When you talk about pair programming, do not talk about the values of pair programming. Talk about how it's going to give them greater mastery in their craft. That's what this altitude understands.
Over in the culture sphere, the culture naturally values innovation and meritocracy. That's part of orange thinking. So if you're not good at innovation, you want to help them get better. Forget about green. Forget about trying to get green values. Try to make orange healthier, more innovative, more merit-oriented.
Less greedy.
My allegiance to my role, my role allegiance to career is defined by the market. In other words, if the market values being an Agile developer, I'm going to become an Agile developer, because that's a resume issue, not it's a people issue, not it's a values issue.
Right. Is this making sense of what's possible at each altitude? Okay.
So
Good.
over here in an orange to green enterprise, this is sort of the sweet spot of SAFE. SAFE is wildly popular because it's optimized to orange-green, which is where a lot of orange companies are starting to move. So it really is speaking to that market. You can collaborate with business in terms of your practices. That's really conceivable here.
Because remember that now what's coming online with green is relationships are real. They're not just transactional. Right? So that's why real collaboration is possible. We want to hear each other's ideas. We want business and IT to collaborate, to actually work on something together.
Here you can really start orienting around value streams.
Yep.
And a focus on the customers, because you tap into the green thinking that actually values what customers think and want as people, not just as buyers.
A serious organizational strategy for a green organization is customer intimacy. That's a valid, serious organizational strategy.
In the I space, you have emotional intelligence more coming online. And I can start to see other people's perspectives more clearly, which feeds, that feeds collaboration on teams, feeds conflict, or it supports conflict, good conflict work.
Yep.
Here now, see, when I'm tapping into some amount of green, the needs of the team can come before my own career sometimes. Strictly at orange, that is just not going to make sense. I want it to say on my resume I'm a team player. I'm not really that interested in being a team player necessarily, especially if it compromises my bonus, but I want it to say that on my resume because that's a popular thing, right?
That's at orange, right? At green, it really is kind of like, we're all in this together. We've got to make one another better. And I don't really care to be the one singled out to say that, she's the one who made it happen. We all need to make it happen together. So that's its values orientation. That's why that makes sense.
All right, so now if we're really at green, now green is...
You have just entered nirvana, Agilists.
Now, the bad news is that green is usually not very efficient
Right.
and sometimes not very effective. At least in the U.S., they tend to be nonprofit organizations, and they're not very good at results, quite frankly. Scandinavia has a lot of green, both social structures and organizational structures. Green, orange, culturally green, maybe business orange. I don't know about the UK. What do you think? No green?
No green, no green in the UK.
Hotel chocolate's pretty green.
What is?
The hotel chocolate's pretty green.
The hotel chocolate is pretty green, apparently. Do you know the hotel chocolate? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Chocolate like chocolate?
She's getting interested now.
It's not a hotel.
Why didn't you book me in there, Simon?
Simon,
Hotel
come on.
chocolate?
So,
Hi.
practicing self-organized Scrum in a green organization is like completely possible. You won't get resistance, you'll get woohoo! Leaders will value that.
Right,
Not think, well, I don't know.
yeah.
The structure is naturally gonna flatten and you're gonna value stream optimize to align with customers. That's gonna make sense in a green organization, that we need to be aligned, forget our politics, we need to be aligned with how our customers think about what we give them. That just makes sense
Right.
from that way.
That means to think about it, people have to have a lot more relationship skill to pull this off, right? Because remember in orange, it's about my power, my fiefdom, politics, right? And in green, it's like, I'm able to not worry about that so much. I'm able to know my own value, and it doesn't matter how many people are in my organization. I'm willing to let it morph and change as the needs of customers change, to be close to them.
We're at 8, and we need
Okay.
to be out here by 8:15.
That would be ideal.
Okay.
Okay. So a lot more EQ complexity here, and the culture now is going to actually value empowered teams. They're going to believe that that's not just sounds good, but it actually is good to do.
Yeah.
And green is oriented toward values altogether.
Yeah.
Where they want to live their values. That's important in green. You know, again, orange, slightly cynically, wants to put their value statement on the wall, but they, don't necessarily act from them. All right. So now we're going to.
So it's a table out of the book, Reinventing Organizations, we've been alluding to a few times.
So look down this list and see for how many people does this look like what you do or what your organization does.
Does that seem pretty familiar? Yeah. So, an organization centered in orange, that's kind of how they do their business functions.
Now, some people would go, well, that's just the way business is.
Some people would say it can't be any other way. Well, yeah,
That's actually
right
not
now.
true. There's documented evidence that that's not true, but it is extremely common.
Yeah.
So, from an organizational point of view, these teal organizations that this man, Frederick Laloux, a Dutch guy, investigated, did a very in-depth study of a dozen such organizations, and he found that they were all organized with self-organizing teams. Now, these were not companies doing Agile software development. They were not companies that had Agile coaches telling them they should do this. They just evolved this naturally because that's where human evolution is going.
And they had the complexity of mind in the people in the organization to create these structures that look a lot like what we say. Like we say we need coaches without management authority, right?
That's why I think, Agile is teal thinking, because it's echoing.
Yep.
And we don't have project managers. People put themselves on projects. They make their own decisions about that. They self-organize.
Yep. And why would we have HR do interviews? That seems silly. That seems like a middleman that we should cut out. Let's just have team members do interviews.
And we don't really need job titles. We renegotiate our relationships and what we do based on our higher EQ. And we don't do individual performance stuff. We focus on teams, and teams evaluate us because that's the unit of value, basically.
Yeah. And another
so
one.
This is not like an organization you work in, I'm pretty sure. Is that true?
Except for this guy. So what do you think now?
What do you think?
Still.
80, 90% of that.
Cool.
Oh, people are going, wow.
So you're
Well, that's
either
what we do.
you're
That's
either
what we
gonna
do.
you're either gonna want to hold court after this, or you're going to get the hell out.
What they're-
Depending on if you're hired
That's
or
what
not.
organization does for a living.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's thought works, and that's what we do. We
Uh-huh.
do transformation. That's what we do.
Interesting
All
what
right.
that was. I'm not going to speculate on it.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So
Yeah, okay, so let's just see what would be possible in a teal enterprise, okay?
So you're going to really have adaptive processes possible in a teal organization. And
Mm-hmm.
adaptive organization structures, they change not based on politics, but based on the need of what the market is saying and what the work that people are doing is.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to renegotiate those in some kind of pretty fluid
Yep.
way.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, this is, I don't know if you've noticed how this quadrant has developed, but it's gotten kind of out there.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow. Whoa.
Yeah. So these are people with a really high level of internal development, internal complexity.
A teal organization is actually not oriented toward results. They're oriented toward the fulfillment of their purpose. Those are different.
Results still get done. They come along for the ride, though. They don't become the thing that we drive. Drive.
You don't- In a teal organization, we don't care about scaling. That's not an issue, unless it's directly related to impact.
Yeah.
It's not about, we have to make.
And a teal organization wouldn't scale in a machine model kind of way. That would be, like, why would we do that? We would lose so much if we started turning people into objects. And a teal organization wouldn't do that.
Let's see, I think we've got the last slide, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Should we wait for questions here or go to the next
I don't know what's next, so you tell
the
me.
challenge? Our
Oh,
challenge.
let's hear a little bit now.
Questions, comments?
Why do you think that previous slide with the two organization, it looks a bit like the startup. The I think it's quite similar to the startup culture, and I think the reason for that is because it's quite easy to maintain relationships when you are small.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
question is,
Right.
what is the recipe for evolution for big organizations actually? Because it's quite difficult, I think, to maintain relationship-driven approach for a company with over 100 people, or maybe 500 people, or even
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So I was working with an Agile consultancy in Finland a couple years ago, and they were in the middle of that quandary. They were just about to grow to 125 people. And at that point, they had had a lot of teal structures and teal thinking in the way that they had organized their company. And they said, Lyssa, we're so afraid we're going to lose it. Because as they got to that size, they realized that what they started doing was kind of habitually thinking in orange ways. Oh, now we need an HR function, and now we have to divide the pie and have different people responsible for different functional areas. And they said, what is happening to us? Now, we didn't have this language 2 years ago. So we didn't have as robust a conversation as we would be able to have now. But what this organization decided to do is never get bigger than 100 people. And it actually split its organization. It creates a new baby organization every time they get to another 100, basically.
Now, that's not
Right.
the only way to skin that cat, but I don't have a magic formula for it, but I would suggest reading Lalo and
Yeah.
organization. He documented a company with more than 10,000 people.
That he thought was at this teal elevation.
But
So-
that wasn't a recipe particularly for how to grow it that big. It was just that it was possible.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is that we as individual human beings don't have the complexity of mind, most of us, at this teal level. I tell you, our organization, Agile Coaching Institute, we are an aspiring teal organization. I can't tell you how many times Michael and I realize, oh my God, we're doing it again. We're thinking orange. How do we do that? Why do we do that to ourselves? Look at that. We just boxed ourselves in. I can't believe we did this. I mean, so we say this stuff to ourselves all the time. And we're aware of it. You know, and we're really working toward what does it mean to be a teal organization. So it's an arduous pursuit. You know, arduous meaning ardor, love, and effort together.
It's, the other thing I want to say, or give you an example of, is a company in the Netherlands called Buurtzorg, which is a home healthcare organization, 10,000 people. And they're all organized in self-organized teams. The teams make all their own buying decisions.
And we're talking about we're talking about, you know, health care supplies like syringes and gauze and medical pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. They all buy their own stuff.
Normal corporate thinking would say you have to have a centralized buying function.
I would say that's ridiculous.
You don't have to have a centralized buying function. It makes sense from a certain way of thinking, but not from another way of thinking. So Buurtzorg, with 10,000 employees, has a staff, a central staff. Guess how many people?
Oh, come on, take a guess.
In a normal-sized company, that would be, you know, hundreds of people. In Buurtzorg, it's about 70.
70.
That support 10,000 people.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane from a conventional point of view.
I mean, one way to prevent you going back to, from starting from a teal going to an orange, is what my organisation does. It never lets an office get no more than 250 people.
Yeah.
Because that's the most amount of meaningful relationships you can have
Right.
in the organisation.
Right.
As soon as that happens, they split it and then they send people off somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one, you know, it's terrorist cells. Think about it. It's kind of a brilliant structure, actually, in a certain way. I mean, right? Right? So think about it. I mean, we've been thinking about what does it mean for us to have an Agile consultancy as maybe something the Agile Coaching Institute spins off. And we're thinking we want groups of 7 to 10 people who are really great Agile coaches and enterprise Agile coaches to go off and do their thing. And then another group comes up and they go off and do their thing. And there's some very small central function that provides necessary kind of very minimal but necessary support. Right?
It also
I don't know.
works an architectural perspective as well.
Does it?
Having an architecture of physical implementation also be divided. That's why microservices is currently one of the biggest trends, because if you divide your solution into smaller discrete components that have clear interfaces between them, you have a lot more flexibility in one part system.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. It's been really depressing talk.
Can you say that to the camera?
It's a really depressing talk.
So as an Agile enterprise coach,
Yeah.
you know, we're really looking towards cultural change, big company changes. And most of the companies we go into are kind of that amber-orange mix. And we've got a few teams going through that kind of green and teal. What we're saying here then is we can't change that for big companies. So I'm going to big 1,000 people plus organizations.
Depends on what you mean by change. So I don't suggest that you, where we got one?
You want me to go back to it?
Well, I don't suggest that you try to move an amber-orange organization up to green. That's not going to happen in your lifetime.
Yeah, so you have good reason to be depressed. He's just confirming that, right? Right?
But on the other hand, if you think back to that slide that had all the 4 colors on it, so vertical development takes years. Horizontal development can happen right now. So horizontal development, being better at, you know, if you're talking to Orange, being better at innovation, at accountability, at having meritocracy, those are challenges
results.
usually. That you could change, or you could you wouldn't be working against the grain because that's the value system there. So you'd be working with it. You say, let's get better in this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that would resonate.
Yeah.
Being better in empowerment, I don't give a crap about that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So focus on the things that they value.
Yeah, right. I mean, see, this is the thing that so many of us Agile coaches, so many of them that we work with, is that they want it so badly on behalf of their clients.
It's the dream.
Yeah, we want it so badly that we can kind of force it.
The bigger picture though here is, you know, Fortune 500 companies in 20 years, there won't be a Fortune 500. You know,
They're dying off at an unprecedented rate in the last 10 years.
You know how Uber is dismantling the taxi cab industry?
Right.
Completely. It's going to crush it.
Right.
I mean, you know what Uber's next thing is ride sharing everywhere. Like,
People aren't even going to own cars. Right?
the future of transportation is self-driving cars and Uber. The whole industry is going to collapse.
So those things are
No matter
happening.
how much time that's going to take.
Right? So here's what we say to Agile
So
coaches.
get out of that sinking ship while you're.
Yeah, that's one thing. So if you realize it's not going to happen and you can't be happy with that, then get out. If you can be happy with what change you can affect in that organization, then stay as long as you can be happy. Stay as long as you feel you're giving or getting value.
How many people here have teenagers or grown children? So do they resonate with orange values?
No.
They're like, screw you, pal.
Yeah.
We're talking green and black. Is that right?
My daughter just is applying to colleges, and she put in her first college application this weekend, and we read the essay she wrote, and the first sentence was, my grades don't reflect who I am. I don't buy into the system. And we're
Now,
like,
would you have written that on your college application? I'm thinking not. but-
we're like, honey, you might want to work on that a little bit. You know, you're still going into a system, you know, in universities in the United States that are pretty, you know, pretty amber orange. but you know, their generation won't put up with it. She won't work in an organization where her purpose doesn't align with what they're doing. No way.
Remember that curve of who's where? That's only right now where the baby boom generation is still, you know, the majority power holders in society. That curve is moving swiftly, you know.
Swiftly.
To the
You know, like every change curve. Haven't you noticed how they like change, and woo, change? That's what's happening with evolution of societies too. It's changing very fast now. Right. So just hang on would be another way of, yeah. Yeah, and the lavender shirt. Great.
This is going ever so slightly off topic, but could you possibly comment on component teams and the way they fit within the different altitudes? I'm seeing a fair bit of that.
Well, component teams, I think, are a product of a legacy base of that's how they, you know, organize their technology.
Right.
And that's just really difficult to change for some organizations. I mean, there's largely an in-quadrant, you know, issue of the architecture, just because the technology can change without ripping the whole thing apart and starting over again, it seems to me. So, you know, that's where a new company has an advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you see it everywhere with any kind of installed base of any technology. You know, newer people that organize anew have an advantage over people. You know, you leapfrog from a technology point of view. That's just a
because it's really quite an amber construct, isn't it? The idea of component teams.
Oh,
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a company move from there away from component teams and move to proper feature teams?
So what makes an individual human or a whole company move is that their strategies no longer match the life circumstances around them. So when market forces become so strong, or when the possibility of extinction becomes real for an organization like that, it's possible to move. Now, are they going to move fast enough? Don't know. I mean, I actually say just let's let them die. So here is my very unpolitically correct movement that I want to start in the world.
Am I going to have to pick up the pieces on Twitter?
We are. It's called Quit Your Crappy Job Day. International Quit Your Crappy Job Day. Because think about this. If us Agilists stopped putting our effort into keeping organizations on life support and started putting our effort into organizations that could be like we want them to be, we might have to start them. By the way, this is why communities are important, because you all will start them together, right? Think about how much more potential we could unleash in the world. Think about how much more happiness. how much more customer satisfaction could happen.
So, put another way, if you want to work in a teal organization, you probably need to start one.
Yeah.
And put a different spin on that is, if you are satisfied doing the work you do right now, in whatever altitude the organization is, God bless you, stay there and help those people. And as long as you're adding, it's like open space and the law of 2 feet. As long as you are adding value, you should stay. And when you become so frustrated that you can't, you should leave. It's that simple.
Yeah, great, yeah.
Whether we like it or not, the world recognizes a successful organization to be a profitable organization.
Yeah.
In your experience, as you've watched companies move towards a team attitude, have you seen them profitably increase?
They are wildly profitable.
Okay.
They're wildly profitable. And some of the original research from Claire Graves gives us a little bit of a hint into this as well. So a whole bunch of really cool research this guy did over a long period of time, over more than a decade, with young adults into young professionals, where he over time could classify, okay, these people resonate with amber, orange, green, and teal. And unbeknownst to them, because they didn't know how he had organized them or classified them, he put them into work groups, and he gave them all the same task, because they were in a classroom together, in a college classroom together, with projects to do. The teal folks who got into a team together produced more than all the other 3 combined.
I mean,
Interesting. More.
I mean,
Well, okay, I'm not sure exactly how they figured out value.
isn't this like what I was saying earlier about the move to intrinsic motivation as the biggest push in an organization? Till by their very nature are people that are not looking for bonuses or external gratification. They are their drive is generally the need to master and to achieve or strive for a goal. And that's the fundamental, and that's why they blow. That's why it's like grit. It's about internal wanting to be just the best and achieve. Right?
But it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you remember that from college. You don't self-actualize if you're starving. You don't self-actualize if you don't have a good self-identity.
And you don't self-actualize if you're in an impoverished mindset organization. Right? So here's our challenge to you. There are 3 specific things we want to challenge you with, is to start looking through new eyes. Start looking through all 4 quadrants. Make yourself do it. Look at everything that way.
Get a partner that, actually let's do a quick test. How many people think they're a specialist in the I quadrant? Yeah.
Could you tell? Okay, some of you. Now guys, look around, because this is how you can support each other. Okay,
How
so
about the we quadrant?
we quadrant,
Individual
as an individual, as yourself.
Okay. How about the it quadrant?
Okay, some.
And how about the its quadrant?
Okay, so we've got a little bit of all of them. If you guys start discovering this about each other, you can help one another. Because I always need a partner in the it quadrant. It's the one I so totally do not get. Right? And so I know that about myself, so I always have to partner up. Right?
So we've just talked about engaging in
Quadrant conversations. It's really hard to say that. Great.
New York. One scene.
And now this is the idea of a trial balloon. Yeah.
So don't just speculate on whether an organization is orange or amber or green or teal or
Whatever.
Purple with yellow polka dots. Float out trial balloons, because that'll tell you by how they react, what they value.
And it will also tell you how much movement is possible. So let's say if I'm in a very orange organization, I might talk with the director of HR and I might say something like, so, now that we have these Agile teams that are clicking, we might want to consider having some sort of team-based incentive along with the individual incentive. That's my trial balloon. I just put it out there. and then I watch what she does. I don't pay attention to what she says. I watch what she does.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, what do you think? I might set up a meeting with HR. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of busy.
Yeah. Or that sounds like a good idea, and then moves on to the next topic, right? Oh, right?
Or versus, you're right. That's interesting.
Don't know how we do
More
that.
consistent with I guess what we're saying in Agile. I'm not sure how to do that, but
But let's talk about it some more. Let's figure it out.
you see, that's now a hook. That's like okay, we could maybe work with that.
Yeah.
Whereas the first one is like, just leave that alone.
Leave it alone for now. So we want you to get in the habit of floating some trial balloons, seeing what's possible. Don't just assume. Right? Because remember, people and organizations are changing all the time. Maybe not in the ways you want, maybe not as fast as you want, but things are shaking up all the time.
Uh-oh. We're past 8:15.
That's it.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.